Faith Hedgepeth would have been the first person in her family to graduate from college. An honor student in high school, she excelled in her studies and earned a Gates Millennium Scholarship to attend the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. She had a passion for helping children and hoped to one day become a pediatrician. But that dream came to a tragic end when the UNC Chapel Hill Jr. was bludgeoned to death in the early morning hours of September 7th, 2012, just weeks before her 20th birthday. A member of the Haliwa-Saponi Native American tribe, Faith was born to Roland and Connie Hedgepeth on September 26, 1992, in Warren County, North Carolina, which is part of the tribe's traditional territory. She grew up in Hollister, a small town on the Warren-Halifax County border. Roland Hedgepeth described Faith as true joy. She was a gift because she came to us at a low point in my life. She kept me going. She was my Faith. Only a couple of months after Faith was born, her parents divorced and her father moved to Hickory, North Carolina, about a 4-hour drive away. Faith kept in close contact with her father, but lived with her mother, Connie, and her older sister, Rolanda Hedgepeth, who helped raise her. Rolanda, who was 18 when her sister was born, was like a second mother to Faith. She said, "I helped take care of her from the beginning. Everywhere we went, people thought she was my child, and she was. I felt like she was my child." Faith excelled in high school, where she was an honor student, a cheerleader, and a member of many extracurricular clubs and organizations. A Carolina girl to the core, when it came time to apply for college, Faith knew she wanted to go to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. She even earned the highly selective Gates Millennium Scholarship to attend the prestigious university. Her father had also attended UNC Chapel Hill, but never finished after starting a family with Connie. She knew exactly where she wanted to go, Roland said. She was a Carolina girl, and she was determined to go to school at Chapel Hill. As Faith began her third year at UNC, she was planning to further her studies and become a pediatrician. Faith's mother, Connie said, all she wanted to do was help people, especially children. It was her passion. But school was hard, and when she started to struggle, she told me she thought about being a teacher instead. I told her the world is wide open for her, and if she put her mind to it, she could achieve anything. Connie saw her daughter for the last time on Sunday, September 2nd, 2012. The family was celebrating Connie's birthday early, and after Faith's waitressing shift at Red Robin in Durham, Faith and her roommate, Karina Rosario, drove to Warren County to join them. Connie added, "We were just hanging out, enjoying time with the family. I had no idea my world was about to turn upside down. On Tuesday, my birthday, Faith called me, wished me happy birthday, and that was it. That was the last time I spoke to my baby girl." On Wednesday that same week, Faith also touched base with her father. She texted him to tell him about her plans to join UNC's chapter of the Native American Alpha Pi Omega. "It's like she always knew the right time to text me. She sensed it," Roland said. She asked Dad, "What's wrong?" And I told her what was going on, and she told me to just have faith. She was always thinking of other people. That was the thing about her. She was beautiful on the outside, of course, but she also had this beauty on the inside. She always made me feel like I was the most special person in the world. It was the last conversation Roland would have with his daughter. A little more than 24 hours later, Faith was dead. According to Assistant Chapel Hill Police Chief Salisa Lehew, Faith attended a rush event for Alpha Pi Omega around 6 p.m. on Thursday, September 6th. She later went to Davis Library on the UNC campus to study with her roommate, Karina. After a few hours of studying, Faith and Karina went home to the off-campus apartment they shared on Old Chapel Hill Road in Durham. They left the apartment again that night just after midnight. Security footage shows the women arriving at the now-closed nightclub, The Thrill in downtown Chapel Hill. It was a popular club among college students because it admitted patrons under the legal drinking age of 21 to dance. Karina later told police she felt sick to her stomach, and they decided to go home. Security cameras show Faith and Karina leaving the club around 2:30 a.m. They were home at the apartment in Durham by 3 a.m., according to a neighbor who told police she heard the girls moving around. Around the same time, records show Faith's Facebook page was accessed. About an hour later, Karina left the apartment with a friend who came to pick her up, Liu confirmed. When she left, she knew Faith to be in her bed. Police said the door was left unlocked. The next morning, Karina tried to call Faith for a ride home, but when she didn't answer, Karina called another friend. According to Lehu, they arrived at the apartment to find Faith dead, partially nude, wrapped in a comforter that had been on the bed. There was a significant amount of blood in the room, and Faith had suffered what appeared to be severe head trauma, Lehu added. According to the 911 call that was later released, Karina told the operator that she found Faith unconscious in the bedroom. When asked if Faith was breathing, Karina responded, "I don't know. I don't think so. There's blood everywhere." Faith's mother, Connie, got the call while she was at work in Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina. "They told me Faith is dead," Connie told Datelin. "I didn't believe her. How can Faith be dead? I asked if it was a car accident or something, but no, it wasn't that. This didn't make sense. When I got off the phone, it just hit me. I burst into tears." Connie said she was in shock, but knew she had to deliver the heartbreaking news to Faith's father and to her sister and brother. The following days, weeks, and even months were a blur for Faith's family. The police investigation stretched on for 2 years. In 2014, just days before the second anniversary of Faith's murder, Durham County Court officials unsealed documents in the search for her killer. The autopsy report, which was also unsealed at that time, revealed what her family already knew. Faith had died from blunt force trauma to the head. The report also detailed cuts and bruises on her arms and legs, along with blood under her fingernails. Investigators believed the murder weapon to be an empty Bacardi rum bottle. The bottle was found in the bedroom with tissue fragments and DNA on it. Also found in the bedroom near Faith's body was a fast food bag with a handwritten note that read, "I am not stupid." Investigators said, "Each bit of evidence we receive is another piece of the puzzle we use to put the complete story together. We don't count out any evidence, and we are constantly reviewing." A DNA profile was created from DNA collected from the scene and semen collected in a sexual assault kit. Investigators believe the DNA belongs to the killer, Chapel Hill Police Chief Chris Blue said in a 2014 press conference. Police and family members believe Faith likely knew the person or persons involved in her murder. But because of Faith's social, bubbly personality, they discovered she was connected to a large circle of friends that extended across the college campus and beyond. "She never met a stranger," Faith's father, Roland, said. "She was just a joy to be around. And goofy. Goofy like me, and just loved to laugh. She was friends with everyone." According to earlier reports, more than one person of interest was questioned, but were cleared when their DNA did not match the DNA found at the scene. Approximately 2,000 people have been questioned, and the DNA of more than 100 people has been tested. But nearly 8 years later, there's still not a match. "We continue to use all tools that are available to us," Assistant Chief of Police Salisa Lehu said. "We can't point to any one thing that will lead to an arrest. We will not give up until we can give Faith's family the closure they deserve." Lehu said the department has strong evidence in the case, and it's not a question of if the case will be solved, but when. "We are constantly looking at the case file and following up on leads and using new technology and evidence procedures," Lehu said. "It will be solved." Faith's sister, Rolanda, told Dateline she believes the department is working hard to solve the case. but didn't think it would take 8 years." She added, "Nothing ever prepares you for this." I miss hearing her call me Ro in her little Faith voice. So many years have passed, but I'm hopeful we'll get closure. I'm always hopeful. Faith's father fears that as the years slip by, the truth of what happened to his daughter will never be known. With each year, instead of getting closer, I feel like we're getting further away from knowing why someone would do this to her, he said. Faith not only made an impact when she was alive, but her legacy lives on now with the Faith Hedgepeth Memorial Scholarship. The scholarship is offered to help a Native American woman from a North Carolina tribe earn a higher education. Connie said they have given out 22 $1,000 scholarships in the years since Faith's murder. The family offered a $40,000 reward for information that leads to the arrest of the person responsible for Faith's murder. In 2021, the Chapel Hill Police Department announced during a press conference that they arrested 28-year-old Miguel Enrique Salguero Olivares and charged him with first-degree murder in connection with the crime. He is being held at the Durham County Detention Center without bond. The assistant police chief said Olivares was not a suspect at the beginning of the investigation. Salguero Olivares' DNA matched semen samples collected at the crime scene. His appearance also matched the DNA profile sketch created by Parabon Nanolabs that police released in 2016. Salguero Olivares' mother following the arrest claimed that her son didn't attend UNC at Chapel Hill or have friends there. "My son is not a murderer. I believe in my son. I believe it," she said. He said he don't know the girl. Connie Hedgepeth, Faith's mother, stated following the announcement of the suspect's arrest, "When I got the news this morning, I didn't do anything but cry. And thank God and praise God." North Carolina Attorney General Josh Stein said police detectives and SBI agents conducted thousands of interviews as part of the investigation. She thanked the Chapel Hill Police Department and SBI for their work on the case. Connie Hedgepeth said, "When I cried, it was tears of joy, tears of relief that someone had been arrested." Eliza Fletcher, a Memphis teacher and mother of 2, got up on the morning of September 2, 2022, and went for a run. She took her usual route close to the University of Memphis, but she was never seen alive again. Horrifying surveillance footage captured the 34-year-old being snatched and bundled into an SUV. 3 days later, her body was found dumped near an abandoned building, her running gear discarded close by. Fletcher, known to family and friends as Liza, was out on her regular morning jog at around 4:20 a.m. on September 2, 2022, when the abduction unfolded. Surveillance footage captured the mother of 2, dressed in a pink jogging top and purple running shorts, running close to the University of Memphis campus. The footage showed a black 2013 GMC Terrain SUV driving past her before pulling up. A man was then seen getting out of it, before he ran aggressively toward the jogger. A violent struggle broke out, and the man forced Fletcher into the passenger side of the vehicle. The car then remained on the scene with the 2 inside for around 4 minutes before driving off. The footage shows. Fletcher's family reported her missing when she failed to return home from her run. The jogger's cell phone and water bottle were discovered at the site of her abduction. Investigators also found a pair of Champion slide shoes, believed to belong to Henderson, which were left behind in the struggle. Photos of the suspect vehicle were released to the public to help track down the missing mother of 2. Surveillance footage captured the same SUV stalking the area where Fletcher was taken just 24 minutes before the kidnapping. Law enforcement officers spent days combing the area near where Fletcher disappeared, including searching through dumpsters, ponds, and parks. Then, just after 5 p.m. on September 5, 2022, 3 days on from her disappearance, officers found the victim's body close to an abandoned elementary school in South Memphis. The grim discovery was made less than a mile from where a witness told police they had seen Henderson vigorously cleaning an SUV, matching the vehicle seen in surveillance footage. It was also close to where authorities seized a dumpster and took bags out as evidence near Henderson's brother's house. On the morning of September 6, 2022, police confirmed the body had been positively identified as belonging to the mother of two. According to an affidavit, investigators from Memphis Police Department and federal and state partners had noticed vehicle tracks in tall grass leading to a vacant apartment. A search and rescue officer smelled an odor of decay and spotted a set of footprints in the rear driveway of the premises. He then saw an unresponsive female lying on the ground. The documents state. She was pronounced dead on the scene. Police found Fletcher's pair of purple Lululemon running shorts discarded in a trash bag nearby. A shell casing was also recovered from the area. Surveillance footage showed Henderson's black GMC Terrain nearby between 5:48 a.m. and 5:52 a.m. The autopsy later revealed that Fletcher suffered blunt force trauma to her right leg and was shot in the back of her head from an indeterminate range. There are two semicircular defects to the skull consistent with a single gunshot to the head, with the bullet traveling in a posterior to anterior, back to front, and right to left direction, the report said, adding she also had jaw fractures. U.S. Marshals spotted a vehicle matching the description of the suspect's car in a parking lot close to Henderson's home. The SUV had the same damaged taillight and partial license plate identification seen in the surveillance footage of the abduction. When officers found Henderson nearby, he tried to flee the scene, but he was arrested on September 3, 2022, just 24 hours on from the teacher's abduction, and 2 days before her body was found and taken in for questioning. On September 4, 2022, Memphis police announced that he had been charged with aggravated kidnapping and tampering with evidence. The following afternoon, Memphis police charged Henderson with 3 additional charges: identity theft, theft of property under $1,000, and fraudulent use of a credit card. Henderson was spotted cleaning the inside of his car and washing his clothes in the sink in the aftermath of the abduction. A witness and the suspect's brother said they saw him behaving oddly at his house and undergoing the clean later on, September 2, 2022. Even after the clean, authorities said they have recovered blood and other evidence inside the vehicle, leading them to believe Fletcher suffered a serious injury. Cell phone location data also placed Henderson at the scene of the abduction, and the Champion slides found at the scene were tied to him through both DNA evidence and surveillance footage. Henderson reportedly refused to tell investigators where Fletcher was or what happened to her. When police found her body, Henderson was hit with new charges of first-degree murder and first-degree murder in perpetration of kidnapping. He was initially held on $500,000 bond and made his first court appearance on September 6, 2022. Henderson made a second appearance in the Shelby County Circuit Court on the morning of September 7, 2022, where a judge revoked his bond. It was during this appearance that he asked that he be addressed as Cleotha Henderson instead of Cleotha Abston. After the court appearance, Shelby County jail records showed he was listed as Cleotha Henderson. The suspect's brother, Mario Abston, was also arrested and charged following the police search of their home. Mario Abston is charged with 1 count of possession with intent to distribute heroin, 1 count with intent to distribute fentanyl, and felony possession of a firearm. Henderson, 38, has a long rap sheet prior to Fletcher's kidnap and murder. From the age of 11, he was in the juvenile system and was known to be part of the Lemoyne Gardens Gangstas gang. Between 1995 and May 2000, he was arrested 16 times, including for the alleged rape of a man when he was aged 14, theft, aggravated assault, and unlawful possession of a weapon. At the age of 16, he kidnapped a man at gunpoint. After being convicted, he was released from prison less than 2 years before Fletcher's murder. In an eerily similar situation to the kidnapping of Fletcher, Henderson, then aged 16, bundled a Memphis attorney into his vehicle in an early morning attack. On May 24, 2000, at around 2 a.m., Henderson approached Kemper Durand in his vehicle, got out, and forced the attorney into the trunk of his car. He then drove the victim around for several hours before taking him to an ATM where he robbed him. The victim was saved when he shouted for help from a passerby, prompting his attacker to flee the scene. Henderson was later arrested and pleaded guilty in 2001 to aggravated kidnapping. He was sentenced to 24 years in prison and was released in November 2020 after serving 19 years. 1 year after his release and 1 year before Fletcher's abduction and murder, Henderson allegedly raped a woman in September 2021. Alicia Franklin claims that she met Henderson on a dating app in 2021, and they made plans to go for dinner together. The suspect then held her at gunpoint, blindfolded her, and threatened to kill her before walking her to his car. He then allegedly forced her into the back seat of the car where he raped her. Mrs. Franklin reported the assault to the police, but Henderson was not arrested at the time because of a long delay in processing the rape kit. Henderson's DNA was in the system from his prior convictions, but her alleged rapist's DNA was not entered into the National Law Enforcement Database until September 5, 2021, 3 days after Fletcher's abduction. Henderson is now also charged over the 2021 rape. He is also charged over a robbery, which took place on September 1, 2021, 1 day before Fletcher's abduction. Henderson has pleaded guilty to all charges. One evening in April 2005, Raven Abaroa said he was out playing soccer when he returned to his family's North Carolina home to discover a horrifying scene. He told police he found his wife, 25-year-old Janet Abaroa, stabbed to death in an upstairs office. Nothing else in the house was disturbed, according to authorities, and the couple's 6-month-old son, Caden, was left unharmed in another room. Raven Abaroa told a 911 dispatcher at the time, "She's been shot or something. There's blood everywhere." Who killed Janet Abaroa was a mystery that captivated the Durham, North Carolina, suburbs, and the case remained unsolved for years. Janet Christensen, the 7th of 10 siblings, grew up in a Mormon family. She met Raven Abaroa, also a Mormon, in 1998 at Southern Virginia University, where she played soccer. He was a fellow soccer player who instantly swept her off her feet. She was beautiful, attractive. "I just felt so much comfort when I was with her," Raven Abaroa said in an interview in 2007. "And we started this journey of getting to know each other, and it was an amazing journey." In August 2000, after 2 years together, Janet and Raven Abaroa married at the Mormon Temple in Washington, D.C. They settled in southeastern Virginia. Her friends and family thought that life for the newlywed couple was perfect. Soon after their wedding, a job opportunity moved the couple to Durham, North Carolina, where they both took positions at a sporting goods company. Janet Abaroa's sisters told ABC News that at the time, the couple was beginning to have some marital problems. "The Abaroas welcome a son. He came to her one day because he wanted to be out of the marriage," said Sonja Flood, Janet Abaroa's sister, and explained to her that he had been cheating on her with several different people. And very soon after that, she found out that she was pregnant. It should have been the happiest time of Janet and Raven Abaroa's lives. But instead, Janet Abaroa confided in her family that she felt helpless. Her older sister, Dana Kendall, told 2020 that Janet didn't want to raise the baby as a single mother. But it seemed to friends and family that the young couple worked things out and welcomed their son Caden on October 17, 2004. He promised, swore up and down, that he would no longer cheat on her, that she was the only one for him. He would make it work, Flood said. With the birth of their baby boy, the Abaroa's marriage seemed to be on the mend, until they suffered yet another blow. Raven Abaroa was caught stealing from the sports apparel company, where they both worked, in December 2004. Mortified, Janet Abaroa resigned from her job. He eventually pleaded guilty to 5 charges of embezzlement, but would avoid serving any jail time. On April 26, 2005, Raven Abaroa said his wife had been getting ready for bed around 8 p.m. when he left to play soccer with friends, according to the account he gave police about that night. He said he returned home after 10 p.m. and found Janet Abaroa's body with multiple stab wounds. In a 911 call, Raven Abaroa told the operator, "My wife is dead. She's been shot. There's blood everywhere. She's not breathing." Although Abaroa said his wife had been shot, Durham police quickly realized that she had been stabbed. Shortly after his wife's death, Raven Abaroa moved to Salt Lake City, Utah, with their son. There, he eventually met Vanessa Pond, a single mother whose daughter was in the same day care program as Abaroa's son, Caden. Raven seemed very upfront, very honest and genuine, Vanessa Pond said. And I found out that he was a single father. And I really, really admired that. They started dating, and Pond told 2020 that Abaroa mentioned his wife had died. She said she felt so sorry for him and Caden. They decided to move in together. Pond went online to find out more about the death of Raven Abaroa's first wife. She told ABC News at the time she wasn't convinced Raven Abaroa was innocent. But after asking him questions, she said he removed any and every doubt from my mind. He had his stories about how people were trying to frame him, about how horrible the cops were, and how he continued to try to contact the police to find out what's going on, said Pond. In summer 2008, 3 years after Janet Abaroa's death was still unsolved, Pond and Raven Abaroa were married in the backyard of her parents' home. When Janet Abaroa's sisters learned he was engaged, they said they felt they had to reach out to his new fiancé. "We just wanted her to make sure she was aware of the things that had been in the news about him, that she would know what she was getting into, and that we were fearful for her," said Janet's sister, Dana Kendall. "I was heartbroken," Pond said. "I did not want to believe at all that he had done this." Not long after, Pond said Raven Abaroa began acting in ways she didn't understand. Within moments, he could switch. He could say the most horrible things, Pond said, and then moments later, he would apologize. The outbursts, Pond said, became physical. "He grabbed me from the door and threw me up against the wall, and then I fell," Pond said. Later, he tried to convince me that I had tripped. A new detective is assigned to Janet Abaroa's case. Just 4 months into their marriage, Pond said she feared for her safety. The couple separated and the marriage was annulled. Pond went public in spring 2009 with her fears that he killed his first wife. The Durham police assigned a new detective to Janet Abaroa's case, Sol. Raven never kept the lies straight, Sol told 2020. His statements to law enforcement initially, they were contradictory. Then, as he was reviewing the crime scene photos, Sol said something stuck out to him as odd. "I noticed the contact case on the counter with the top off of it, indicating to me that the likelihood that the contacts were probably not in there, which would be contrary to her going to bed. Or, as Raven said, in the bed going to sleep." Sol said, when police interviewed Janet Abaroa's family and friends, Sol said they told them Janet Abaroa was consistent with removing her contacts before going to sleep. He said he found this detail suspicious. Then the next thing, Sol said, is not seeing any disturbance based on the manner of her death. A stabbing, is not immediate. It's usually violent, with struggling, a disturbance. Raven Abaroa was arrested on February 1, 2010, and charged with first-degree murder in the death of his first wife. In July 2010, Janet Abaroa's body was exhumed, and authorities determined that she had been wearing contacts when she was buried. After I received these fragments and I then cleaned them, I think washed them with sterile water to get a better view, said Dr. Charles Zwirling, an ophthalmologist who examined the remains. The material actually swelled from the water and resumed a convex shape typical of your contact lens. But the key finding was finding the numbers 1, 2, 3 on sample A. This was conclusive evidence that this was an AccuV contact lens. In order to demonstrate how a contact lens decays over a period of time, if it were buried with a body, Zwirling conducted a recreation using sets of pig eyes in 3 separate boxes. I applied the contact lens, said Zwirling. I applied a lens cap, which is done at your funeral home. I used the same solutions, even the same linen, and I got these little caskets, these wooden boxes. And I put the pig eyes in them and buried them actually in my backyard. And then, after 6 months, I exhumed the first box, and so forth. The final analysis showed that the contact lenses did change just like the one we discovered, he added. Apparently, this evidence was crucial in determining a flaw in Raven Abaroa's story. Raven Abaroa goes to trial and faces his second wife in court. During his trial, which began in 2013, prosecutors presented Raven Abaroa as a controlling husband. Pond, who testified as a witness for the prosecution, detailed how she saw Raven Abaroa become violent on the soccer field and how his aggression turned on her. When he sees weakness, he just comes at you harder and harder, Pond said in court. He told me how much he hated me and how much it didn't matter if I died. Abaroa's defense team argued that the prosecution's evidence against their client was mostly circumstantial, and police had ignored evidence, including a bloody shoe print, that they said could have pointed to a different killer. In May 2013, the jury failed to reach a verdict, deadlocking 11-1 on a guilty verdict, and the judge declared a mistrial. Before Raven Abaroa's second trial was supposed to begin in March 2014, he entered an Alford plea for voluntary manslaughter, acknowledging that there was evidence to convict him, but not admitting guilt. I was shocked. But more than that, I was shocked at what the plea deal turned out to be, Pond said. That's not justice at all. It's not justice. A judge sentenced him to between 95 and 123 months in jail, but he was granted credit for the 4 years he had spent behind bars before, and during his trial, which was applied as time served. Raven Abaroa did not testify at his trial, but he spoke in court in 2014 after being sentenced. I would just like to state that I didn't receive a fair trial the first time. I don't think I'll receive a fair trial a second time, he told the court at the time. I don't think it's worth risking the possibility of spending the rest of my life in prison for something I didn't do. I take this plea to ensure that doesn't happen, and that's the only reason. I didn't kill my wife. Abaroa, now 39, was released from prison on Christmas Day, 2017. He now lives in Utah. The rape and brutal murder of an elderly woman found stabbed to death in her home in San Diego, California, 25 years ago, has finally been solved. On February 29, 1992, Kleinsorge was found dead in her home at 5600 Gaines Street, near Linda Vista Road. Haiti, who called her mother every day to check on her, had spoken to her the day before the murder. On the morning of February 29th, Haiti called her mother 3 times, but got no answer. She knew something was wrong, said San Diego PD Chief Shelley Zimmerman. Haiti rushed over to her mother's home. Immediately, she noticed something was amiss when she saw the garage light on and the blinds shuttered. When Haiti went inside the house, she made the grisly discovery. Her mother's body lay lifeless on the floor beside her bed. Kleinsorge had been sexually assaulted and stabbed several times on her neck. According to investigators, the killer entered Kleinsorge's home through a window and attacked her. For decades, Kleinsorge's murder remained unsolved. At the time, authorities said regular DNA testing did not match anyone in a statewide offender database. Kleinsorge was born in Germany in 1907. She immigrated to the United States, where she met her husband, Paul. The couple moved to California, started a landscaping business, and raised their family in a modest home in the quiet San Diego suburb of Linda Vista. The couple lived the American dream and tried to give back to their community. The Kleinsorges were founding members of the House of Germany at the International Cottages in Balboa Park. They took tremendous pride in their German-American heritage, the police chief said. Paul died in 1971. Angela Kleinsorge continued to live at the family's home, where, as she grew older, she settled into a quiet life. She had a daily routine that included waking up at 6 a.m. for coffee and breakfast, watching soap operas, and working in her garden. She was beloved by her children, family, and friends. San Diego law enforcement announced the major break in 2017 in the quarter-century-old cold case killing of Angela Kleinsorge, 84. Her killer was Jeffrey Falls, a man who lived across the street from the victim, according to DNA testing and investigators. The victim's daughter, Heidi Kleinsorge, said to learn that it had been a neighbor. "It was just horrifying to us. Falls is no longer alive. He was killed in a 2006 crash." However, a rare procedure known as familial DNA testing helped San Diego law enforcement zero in on him as the killer. The cold case finally began to crack in July 2016 when this type of advanced science came into the equation. In 2015, the San Diego Police Department and the San Diego District Attorney's Office submitted the cold case to the Department of Justice with a request for familial DNA testing, a process that allows investigators to widen their scope when searching offender databases. Through the process, investigators may be able to identify people who are likely to be close relatives of a person who may have committed a crime. The familial DNA results from this case matched a convicted offender who was dead, according to the DA's office. The results showed there was a high likelihood that a brother of that convict was the man who killed Kleinsorge. As investigators researched this break in the case, they discovered the convict had two brothers. One who was alive and another, Falls, 42, who was killed in a 2006 motorcycle accident. San Diego PD detectives were able to give the living brother a DNA test, and he was eliminated as a suspect in the cold case. After that, it was time to test Falls. The DA's office said the coroner gave tissue samples from Falls to San Diego PD lab criminalist Adam Dutra. The crime lab obtained a partial DNA profile from Falls' tissue. At this point, the breakthrough nearly 25 years in the making unfolded. The DEA's office said Falls' DNA matched a sample collected at the scene of Kleinsorge's slaying, pointing to him as her killer. The likelihood ratio for kinship between the crime scene sample and Falls is in the quadrillions, San Diego County District Attorney Bonnie Dumanis said at the news conference. Finally, the case had been solved. District Attorney Dumanis said the familial DNA testing results have brought a measure of closure to the Kleinsorge family. Although a rare procedure, Bonnie touted the science as a way to propel an investigation forward and solve more crimes. Kleinsorge's surviving daughter, Heidi, spoke about what this means for her family. Pained for so long by her mother's murder. When you lose a loved one to a brutal and violent act, and there's no one charged with the crime, you often wonder if the criminal wakes up in the morning, thinks that he got away with murder, or if he even gives it a second thought, said Heidi. After 25 years, we have our answer. While we have only partial closure, at least we know Mr. Falls no longer thinks he got away with the rape and murder of our mother. On July 15, 1984, athlete Kari Swenson was on a training run near Big Sky, Montana, when she encountered Don and Dan Nichols. Kari, a world champion athlete whose career was cut short in 1984 when she was abducted by the deranged father and son in the mountains of Montana, tied to a tree, and shot as her friend died trying to save her. The father and son hoped to make Kari Dan's bride after capturing her and dragging her deep into the woods, with plans of starting a new family in the wilderness. Kari was found 18 hours later, tied to a tree and suffering from a gunshot wound to the torso. Her friend, Alan Goldstein, lay dead beside her, shot and killed by dawn when Alan stumbled across the campsite. Miraculously, Kari was still alive, but the father-son duo were nowhere to be found. Forest rangers, SWAT teams, and anti-terrorist units scoured Montana's backcountry in search of Dawn and Dan Nichols. It would be 5 months before authorities caught wind of the pair. After receiving a tip about a suspicious campfire in the dead of winter, Sheriff Johnny France went to investigate alone, leading to a showdown that will have you on the edge of your seat. Kari Swenson's harrowing ordeal was recently featured on an episode of Investigation Discovery's series Your Worst Nightmare. The episode, titled Into the Wild, features a reenactment of the horrific events that took place in 1984. Sheriff Johnny France and author Malcolm McConnell recount this terrifying true crime in their book, Incident at Big Sky. Kari was halfway around the small lake. The trail was hardly wider than a deer path, and steep, following the sharp contour of the pothole lake shore. She splashed through a stream and puffed up a sharp rise. Here the pines were even thicker than up on the ridge. But ahead to the left, the trail opened again, a clear route, cutting up the slope among the dense deadfalls to rejoin the ridge. That should be Jack Creek Trail, and if she followed it, her route would cross the logging road again, and she could head back to the trailhead where she'd parked her car. Just before the end of the lake, the trail climbed another rise into dense timber, and Kari stared intently at the ground to avoid injury in the roots and stones. 2 men appeared, not 10 feet away. The older man stood to the left, 1 foot on the trail. The younger man was half hidden in the trees to the right, 5 feet off the path. Her first reaction was surprise, then apprehension. These men were dirty. They did not look like fishermen from Big Sky, and they stood very still, watching her with flat, dark eyes, expressionless, just staring at her body. Now she saw their green backpacks, propped against a tree at trailside. Kari slowed, breaking stride. 2 rifles leaned against the tree near the packs. July was a long time before any legal hunting season, and these 2 guys with their grungy beards and sooty clothes sure did not look like wardens from the Fish and Game. As she stumbled ahead, she realized that they both wore holstered pistols and thick-bladed hunting knives. The older man's face was almost hidden beneath a matted gray beard and the brim of a greasy cowboy hat, but the intense blue eyes frightened her. Even on first sight, she realized that he was not normal. She slowed more when she saw the younger man was staring at her body, his lips grim. He bore a certain resemblance to the older man, but his beard was blonde and thinner. His eyes were deep brown. Kari was shaky and dry-mouthed, but she did not panic. These 2 men were definitely grungy, some kind of rough misfits, but they had not actually attacked her. She did not intend to give them the chance. She decided to run right past them, up the ridge and back to the Jack Creek logging road, where there might be hikers. Without a word, the older man stepped onto the trail, blocking her way. Kari stumbled to a stop, but still overcame the natural panic reaction rising inside her. Maybe, she thought, if I just ask directions, I can keep the conversation short, then turn around and leave. "Hi," she began, keeping her tone normal. "Is this the trail to Jack Creek?"
"Yeah," the old man answered. He formed a quizzical smile. "This is the Jack Creek Trail, all right."
"Thanks," Kari blurted out, then spun to dash back along her original route. Before she could complete her turn, The older man seized both her wrists in a grip so tight she felt her bones might crack. "Please let me go," she cried.
"No, we don't want to let you go." The old man's voice was amazingly calm, as if he were discussing the weather.
Kari struggled against his grip, twisting her weight right and left. "What do you want?" she demanded, anger overcoming her initial fear. "Why won't you let me go?"
"Well," he began, "we don't meet many beautiful women up in the mountains, and we just want to talk to you for a while." He shrugged. The boy remained silent, staring.
Kari was not taken in for a moment. She understood exactly what they wanted from her. "Well," she said coldly, "I sure don't want to talk to you. Let me go." Again, she twisted. Again, the old man held her tight. They were so close together that she was engulfed in his stale, smoky odor.
"All we want is some conversation," the old man said.
"I know what you want." Kari's outrage grew as her fear and frustration mounted.
"Well," the old man said, almost indignant himself now, "we're not going to rape you, if that's what you're worried about."
"I don't believe you," Kari said. "What do you really want me for?"
The old man formed a lopsided smile beneath his beard. "Just for conversation, like I said."
Kari had stopped struggling momentarily, but now she resumed. Once more, his grip defeated her. He did not appear to be exceptionally strong, but she realized his lean frame was deceptive.
"What's your name?" His voice seemed more relaxed now.
Kari was not about to give this creepy scarecrow her real name, and she was prepared to use the question to her advantage. "My name is Sue," she muttered.
"You work down at Big Sky?"
"Yeah," Kari added. "I work in a kitchen."
He leaned closer to watch her eyes. "You married?"
Kari did not hesitate. "Yes, I'm married."
"So what's your husband's name?"
"Bill Soa," Kari answered, this odd name springing to her mind. Perhaps she might have thought that the name had a rugged working-class ring to it, evocative of a vengeful young husband.
"Where's your wedding ring?" he demanded, twisting her left hand open to examine the fingers.
"I don't wear a wedding ring," she said. "Working in the kitchen with those machines and all, a ring could get caught and rip your finger off."
The old man examined her hand more closely. "I don't believe you. It doesn't look like you've ever worn one." There was a cold, bullying dogmatism to his manner now, as if he were being rational and Kari herself was creating a problem.
"No," Kari said desperately. "I don't wear one. And my husband doesn't either because he works in the kitchen too."
"You believe her?" The old man turned to the boy. For the first time, the young man spoke. "She's lying. All women lie." His voice was flat, a bizarre copy of the old man's.
The boy moved closer now, and she could smell the same rancid, smoky odor as the old man's. But he didn't seem as calm about this whole nasty business as the older man. The boy was searching about to get a better view through the trees, both back down the trail and up across the ridge. Clearly, he was worried that a hiker or fisherman might stumble on them, out here in the open on the lakeshore trail. "Please let me go," Kari said, looking up again. "You don't want to get involved in something like this." The old man did not answer. She turned to directly address the boy for the first time. "You're young," she pleaded. "You don't want to get involved in this. It doesn't make sense." Mosquitoes swarmed on her legs and arms now, but she was powerless to brush them off. For an uncertain moment, no one spoke.
"Finally," the old man asked, "Well, Danny, what do you think? Shall we keep her?" The boy nodded decisively. "Yeah, let's keep her."
By nightfall, Swenson's disappearance had been noticed, and her family planned search parties. Volunteers split off in twos to scout along the woods. One pair involved 30-year-old Jim Schwalbe, a landscaper from Wisconsin, and Alan Goldstein, a 36-year-old retailer turned rancher. While stumbling through the woods to a nearby road around 7:30 a.m., the two got separated. Then Schwalbe heard a gunshot, a scream, and 3 voices. 1 female, 2 male. He broke through to the camp and found 2 men standing above Swenson, who was bleeding from the chest. The 4 stood in shock. The younger Nichols was nearly crying, Schwalbe recalled, repeating something about how he hadn't meant to hit her. The older Nichols pointed his rifle at Schwalbe when Goldstein arrived on site and tried to intervene. Don Nichols fired, hitting Goldstein in the face as Schwalbe sprinted away. The Nichols packed up their camp, unchained Swenson, and abandoned her to bleed out. Swenson lay on the ground for 4 hours. She crawled into a nearby sleeping bag, nibbled at a chocolate bar, swigged from a lemonade, and tried not to pass out. A helicopter found her at 11:55 a.m. Once at the hospital, Swenson stabilized. But the aftermath proved nightmarish. For months, the Nichols evaded capture, and the manhunt became a regular feature on the news. When a local sheriff finally caught the kidnappers, he wrote a book about it, which was adapted as a TV movie. The Abduction of Kari Swenson. Just 3 years later, everyone had a theory about the Nichols, about their nonconformist philosophy, about what had driven them into the mountains. And then to abduction. The Nichols boys were branded survivalists and mountain men. When Don and Dan went to trial in Virginia City, Montana, tourists asked for their autographs. When the son was sentenced to 10 years in prison and the father to 85, news segments conducted jailhouse interviews and published their letters from jail. From the headlines, it was easy to conclude the Nichols were rugged outlaws, frontiersmen who did what they wanted, took what they could, and made no apologies. Swenson rarely spoke to media. She went on to become a small animal veterinarian and largely left public life. In 2012, after Dan had been released from prison, rearrested on drug charges, and targeted by a federal arrest warrant after ditching his trial, Swenson wrote an article for the Montana Pioneer mocking their moniker Mountain Men and warning against Don's possible parole. The Nichols lived in the mountains part-time, but they couldn't survive there, Swenson wrote. At least not without poaching, breaking into cabins and stealing supplies, leaving the mountains for months at a time, and purchasing modern equipment. Ultimately, they were caught without a fight because they were cold, hungry, and tired of living in the mountains. These are not mountain men. If you enjoyed the video, please show your support by subscribing and liking the video, and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any future uploads.